mean the steady erosion of 40 years worth of campaign finance laws put in place after the abuses of Watergate? Joining me now from Providence, Rhode Island, is Democratic U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who's had strong words to say about the court's decision this week. And here at the table, we have senior reporter at Mother Jones, Andy Kroll. BuzzFeed's Kate Nocera still with us, as is MSNBC political analyst Michael Steele. And Andy, I want to start with you to just sort of explain to people exactly what happened this week, because it gets confusing. This guy, Sean McCutcheon, was giving checks for $1,776, a very patriotic man, to campaigns, and basically he found that this aggregate limit meant he could give to like 28. I think that worked out to 28 candidates, and he said, well, why can't, if it's okay to give to 28, why can't I give to 29? Can you explain what the answer to that was and what the significance of this ruling really is?
Sure. If you go back to the post-Watergate era, there's a very influential Supreme Court decision, Buckley versus Valeo, 1976. This decision is almost the bedrock of what the Supreme Court says about money in politics and about keeping corruption out of our electoral system. And the court said that not only is it important that we set a limit on how much me as a donor can give you, a candidate, but they also said that there should be a limit on how many of those donations I can spread around the table. And they said that there is a real interest, that there is corruption or the appearance of corruption when you do that. And we need to set that sort of ceiling on how many, whether it's $1,776 donations or $2,000 that you're spreading around. That is what Buckley Valeo said, and that is what the Supreme Court this week struck down and said, no, you know, we still think it's important that that one-on-one interaction between us, me giving you a donation, is limited, but you can do that to as many people as you possibly want every election season. Well,
let me bring Senator Whitehouse in here, because you had harsh words, Senator, about this ruling this week, but let me ask you it this way. I mean, we live in an era of super PACs. We just talked about Sheldon Adelson, who could single-handedly, decide to keep a presidential candidacy alive indefinitely because he poured tens of millions of dollars into a super PAC. We live with that reality. So when we're living in a world like that, when you look at a guy like Sean McCutcheon, who's cutting checks for $1,776, is it really a huge blow to the system if he can give that to 60 candidates now instead of 28, when you got billionaires out there who can throw in as much money as they want on, independent campaigns?
In the wake of Citizens United, which is truly one of the god-awful decisions that any Supreme Court has ever rendered, McCutcheon doesn't look as bad by comparison. But if you hadn't decided Citizens United, this would be a shocking decision. It's only in light of what is probably one of the worst decisions that the Supreme Court's ever made that McCutcheon diminishes in its evil effects and in its bad theory. Ultimately, is the handful of people who hit their personal limits being able to bust through those personal limits itself going to be an enormous deal? No. But this is an add-on to Citizens United, and it continues in the direction that this activist 5 Republican bloc on the court is determined to go down to align political power in this country with financial wealth. And I think if they are able to perfect the alignment of political power with financial wealth in this country, it will say very bad things about our democracy. And if you look at the sort of technique and craft of the decisions, they are very poorly done, and Citizens United has proven absolutely dead wrong in some of its assertions. So it's a lousy area for the court to be involved in. They've done a very bad job of it. The outcome has been unhealthy, and yet they seem determined to proceed. So McCutcheon is just kind of an extra after Citizens United.
Well, let me, Michael Steele, former chairman of the Republican National Party, Republican National Committee, actually joined this lawsuit.
When I was chairman, yeah.
Yeah, so what do you, and what Senator Whitehouse was just saying there is what I'm hearing from a lot of people who don't like this ruling. They're sort of saying, yeah, in and of itself, this ruling isn't that huge of a deal in context, but the question is sort of the direction the court is going right now. And for instance, this week you had Clarence Thomas, who was basically saying not only should this cap be done away with, the aggregate limit, but all limits, all the spending limits imposed by this Buckley-Valeo decision in 1976 should go away. Basically, anyone should be able to give any amount of money to a campaign that they want. And the fear is that it's going in that direction. Do you think that's problematic? Do you think that's a problem if that's where we're going?
I do have a problem with the level of money that's being placed into the political system and the distortion of that system in many respects. But having said that, I am also been from the day one a believer in money is speech. It is property that I can use to express an opinion, how I feel about an issue by supporting you. The limits are in place. It's $2,600. And the fact that I can now give $2,600 to 100 people, I don't think distorts the system as greatly as, you know, my writing a $20 million check into one campaign or on one issue necessarily. But again, it is part of the evolution of this. I understand all this, you know, highbrow disdain on the left. But remember, then candidate Barack Obama, you know, who was this, you know, champion of reform in the system, but the system. McCain took the public funding.
So the federal matching funds.
So, you know, I sit back and I go, oh, really? So you kind of lose sight of the fact that, you know, the champion of this on the left turned a blind eye to the system itself that was created to prevent all this corruption, and now find themselves trying to catch up in this corruption process to get as much money on the table as possible. That's the problem here, is that now everyone's racing to the dollar. My bottom line is this: disclose. Just tell me who you are. If I write a check for $1 or I write a check for $1 million within a 24-hour period, have the campaign, the donor, the party publicly disclose that money, the amount, who you know, where you're from in the background. That's the piece of the Citizens United's case that was missing. But remember, the Democrats rushed this bill, that is the core of the Citizens United case, through the Congress back in 2009. And that's how we got here. They didn't put that one little kicker in there.
And that's, yeah, I hear that.
You know,
I hear that argument.
All this crying about the you know, Sheldon Adelson's, all, you know, just back it up. Just tell Sheldon, disclose the money. Just tell the guys out in Hollywood who are stroking big techs, disclose it. And I don't think this changes everything.
I think I've heard that argument too. I want to get Senator Whitehouse to weigh in, and I also want to ask Kate what's going on Capitol Hill, if there's going to be any response to this, if there could be any response to this. So we'll pick it up right after this.